POWERinU's complimentary webinar, Up Close and Personal, Strengthening Relationships Post-Pandemic. This complimentary webinar is brought to you by POWERinU, which is a training, coaching, and consulting company with office in the Philippines. And we've been offering webinars like this regularly for 2 years now, since January of 2019. POWERinU Philippines has partnerships with various regional and global partners such as POWERinU Singapore and other companies. Where I'm based in Singapore at the moment, and also our guest speaker, she will probably tell you later where she's based at. Our mission is to partner with organizations to enable them to deliver strong business results by enhancing their talent and leadership through value-adding strategic consulting solutions. And so without much further ado, our speaker tonight is a Singapore-based Filipina practicing as a counseling psychologist at the International Counseling and Psychology Center. Her extensive experience in mental health has taken her around the region and beyond, from the United States, Thailand, Malaysia, and now Singapore. Aside from counseling and psychotherapy, she's also a speaker and author on various topics such as parenting, marital, family relationships, and overall mental wellness. She's a presenter of the workshops Getting the Love You Want for couples and connected parents, driving kids for parents, teachers, and other child caretakers. She's a member of the Keynote Women Speaker Asia. She's also an author of the books Affairs Don't Just Happen, Stay Connected, and Couple Goals that promote relationship wellness and skills that strengthen couplehood. In the recent years, she created a care and wellness series of webinars to maintain wellness during the pandemic, such as on managing stress, worry, and anxiety, being your own emotional coach, balancing the work from home experience, and growing your relationship while in lockdown. Everyone, let us welcome our guest speaker, Miss Lizzie Puno.
Thank you so much, Elaine, for that introduction and the warm welcome. And a happy, healthy good evening to everyone. I know that most of you are in the Philippines, and so we greet you this evening from Singapore, as Elaine mentioned earlier. And I know that some people are in other parts of the world, so welcome. I'm very happy to support POWERinU Philippines and Singapore, and for all the values and missions that this group actually supports. So I'm happy to be here this evening, and of course, talking about a topic that interests me a lot, most especially during this pandemic. I have been away from the Philippines for about 24 years now. And so although I held on to the pulse of our country, I'm still happy to connect with all of you. And so later on during our Q&A, I'm hoping to see all of you when your videos are actually turned on. When the pandemic started, I shifted my work to giving online webinars and counseling and psychological services. And what we realized during that time is that relationships were really targeted by a lot of jokes, a lot of humorous stories about how they're going to survive this lockdown and this pandemic. And although we laughed about it, the reality is a lot of relationships suffered. And I know we have been thinking about how we are going to manage post-pandemic. And we are preparing and gearing ourselves on how we are going to emerge. And I hope that since some of you are still on lockdown, that you could use some of the strategies, the topics, the tips that we're going to share today, and actually renew the energy, the purpose, all the goals that you could have in your relationship. So although I will make reference to maybe exclusive dating relationships, to committed relationships, to marriages, I hope that for those of you who are listening in that may have other needs, you can pick out some of the information that applies to you, and at the same time, maybe bring some of your questions later on to the Q&A. Elaine and I agree that we would sort of like keep our discussion tonight light, but of course still useful and meaningful for all of you. So Elaine mentioned earlier that I am an author of 3 books, and as you can see, although my training and my specialization originally was working with children and teenagers, in the middle of my career, after working with some parents, I realized that marriages and relationships and couplehood is so essential because it is the foundation in which families are based in. And as healthy couples, we raise healthy children, growing healthy families onto a healthy society. So, this has been sort of like an interest for me. All the books, the goal is to really maintain emotional and relationship wellness, to help couples reach the fulfillment that it needs. And one of the motivations that I had in writing the books is that as I started working with couples, I realized that marriages are ending sooner. And, as they were uh, getting on in the years of their marriage, couples are not as persevering or as determined maybe as we used to be. And it's saying a lot about what's going on in the world, the pressure of the image of social media in our relationships, and just the demand for perfection. Couples were giving up sooner. They were looking at marriages as disposable, replaceable. And I thought, just like my mentors, Harville and Helen Hendricks, how can we keep marriages stronger? And I really supported that, and my books do the same. So in 2016, I launched Affairs Don't Just Happen. 2018, How to Stay Connected. And in 2019, Couple Goals, which is really for dating couples, those who are in search of a partner that they can keep forever. And so for those of you who ask me if there really is a forever, maybe that's something you can discover from this book. So I'd like to start my presentation just to tell you that when the Wuhan province, which was the epicenter of the COVID-19 virus, lifted its lockdown, 85 couples filed for divorce in a single day in their government office. You might have seen this in, one of the newspaper clippings where it was featured. So, what was that actually telling us about what went on with relationships in lockdown? And actually, the extreme of it is that there was an increase in domestic abuse during the lockdown. So you might think, okay, well, that's the extreme. But what happened to other couples who maybe did not experience that? What were their stressors? So you want to remember that we used to go off to work, we used to go off to parent our children, we used to meet friends, we used to volunteer, we used to do our hobbies, our interests. All of that disappeared during lockdown. And so we were faced with our spouse who was there 24/7, and really now getting into the dynamics of the relationship, you know. And because this pandemic is so unprecedented and we were all in a panic, we were all in a 24/7 danger zone, aside from the masks that we wore on our faces to protect us against the virus, we also wore other kinds of masks, right? As a couple, Okay, what emerged? What emerged was the fix it mask. Why don't you help fix the situation? Why don't you help fix our needs? So we had an expectation from our partners. Then you have to remember, because the pandemic was such a huge threat, our anxiety levels, our worries, and our stress were not in the same level. If you are a worrier and an anxious person, and your partner, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your spouse, and so on, did not feel as anxious and they were relaxed and so on, then the reaction is, well, you don't care, mask, right? You don't care about what I'm going through. You don't understand what I'm going through, right? So these are some of the examples of some of the masks that we put on as couples. And then the last one is for those of us who worked from home, who had our children studying online, virtually, for those of us whose families were all together in one home. And then we had now concerns about our financial resources, our job security, our business growth, all the concerns that we had. The desire was to have a partner to help us. So we had all these expectations of how we were going to be a couple during lockdown, but unfortunately, sometimes this did not happen. And the feeling that we had is that our partners are letting us down, and our partners are, indifferent to all our needs. So if there are three things that relationships lost, and I mean this in all relationships, the pandemic took away safety, connection, and passion. Safety, because we did not know how the virus was going to evolve and how it was going to affect our health, our home, our lives, and it just felt so unsafe physically. Secondly, we lost connection because of social distancing, because of the lockdown, because of quarantine. We were not as free to engage with one another. And lastly, would be passion. All our dreams, our goals, our plans, things that we used to do, in the year 2020, we lost all of that as well. So, the three main essential things that we need as human beings, as people, the virus took away. And we struggled, and we reacted, and we worried, and we stressed, right? So, safety, connection, and passion. And what happened there is, because we were not sure if our partners understood us, because we were struggling internally as well, what transpired in the relationships is that there was a growing emotional distancing. Because you don't understand me anyway, I'm just going to keep my emotions to myself. We all had different kinds of needs, and when those needs were not met, there was increasing conflict and misunderstanding. Why don't you help me? Why don't you meet my needs? Right? And there was a lot of just emotional confusion, emotional struggles that were brewing. And then, of course, communication was definitely affected. People were shutting down, people were irritable, couples were angry at one another, and just there was a low mood. People were getting depressed, there was an increase in anxiety, and all of this that we experience in our relationship. So, what did actually couples discover during home quarantine, right? Um, Either it was already present before COVID, and COVID just made it worse, or it was triggered by COVID, but people discover that their marriages or their relationships were empty, that there was really nothing much that connected them. There was very little to talk about, and that they were very distant. Past hurts and pains, resentments kept them apart. If they were just busy growing a business or they were just busy raising children, then they realized they were in a parallel marriage, maybe even a loveless marriage, that the love has maybe grown to companionship, to friendship, and then there's also a stepfather. And bottom line is the marriage was disconnected and there was really nothing much to share or enjoy with one another. And so, if you are one of them who discovered something like this, I hope that what we would like to share with you tonight you would find quite useful. Because you can definitely reconnect, feelings can grow, feelings can be nurtured, and people can learn to fall in love again. And I think it's important to re energize marriages and relationships. And if you are one of them who might be in a long distance relationship or in a commuter marriage and now you are stuck and far away from one another, there are many things that you can do to plan and strengthen your relationship post pandemic. Because the effects of a relationship that is not attended to is that there is boredom and loneliness. And so couples were telling me that they are together more than ever because there was no travel. And yet they felt lonely and bored and they experienced their partner to be indifferent, not caring, not interested, not showing any curiosity. And so there was a lot of anger and frustration that sort of like emerged in the middle of the lockdown. And because we're trying to get our partners to react, we might criticize them or blame them and just really nag them a lot, bringing on a lot of resentments and hurts and pains. And so couples were truly struggling. And so, again, I just want you to be mindful because you yourselves can turn this around. You can make a choice today to end all these negative effects and find a way towards a path that is loving and connecting and joyful and alive and energized and so on. And this is truly available for all of us across the lifespan. Now, how did you react during the pandemic, right? So, how did you actually react to one another during the pandemic? So, you have three choices here, right? And these are what we are hearing people experienced. Some couples ended up fighting and arguing a lot. So, there was an increase in irritability, arguments, criticisms towards one another. And instead of connecting, there is a tendency to engage in maybe hoarding behavior that brings them comfort. Hoarding of alcoholic drinks, of substances, of online shopping, of all the things that bring comfort to people during this time. Or if you are one of those people who felt like fleeing, they wanted to find a way to escape this situation. So they withdrew into themselves. One wife told me that, she sat in their garage. She went to her garden because she couldn't relate to her partner anymore. So there's a refusal to engage, there's a hiding out even in the bathroom, watching K-drama or reading books, just wanting to isolate. And there's some of those people who froze, right? That the threat of the pandemic allowed them to freeze and para silang natulala. No? So there's numbness, there's that of feeling trapped, there's tension, and all of these things that, we might not have realized. And so, what about you? Did you fight with your spouse? Did you flee the relationship? Or did you freeze and stayed away from engagement? So we're going to find out right now through a poll just to engage you all. I hope that you would join in. Let us know your answer. Were you the type that fought with one another, tried to flee the situation, or froze and was indifferent, shut down, hindi na makaisip, having difficulty thinking, trying to find a way to leave the situation, even if you rode the car and just drove around during the pandemic? We're very curious to find out. Please share with us your experience through our poll, right? And later on, we are now going to share the results, or I'm assuming you can view what I am viewing. So looks like 54%, 50% uh, chose the first one, which is to fight, followed next by 33% to freeze. And there's also some who really found a way to maybe escape the situation. So we're waiting for most of you to join in and to let us know what you experienced. So a few more seconds for you to join in. We are in our last minute or so. So please join in and let us know what was your experience. So it's interesting that we are programmed to respond in one of these ways. And so I think the top winner is to fight. No, we ended up fighting, arguing, being irritable. So I hope that we can turn this around today. So thank you so much, Trina, for sharing the results. We're now going to continue. Well, what can we do in order to reduce this reactivity, reduce this conflict? So we're going to move on uh, so that we could have more time to listen to your question and answers and just allow us to understand what is actually going on. So one of the things that I'd like to introduce to you to do with your partner is, if you have this time during lockdown, ECQ, GCQ, wherever you are, you want to create a relationship vision. I understand Power in You supports a lot of businesses and companies and organizations in their coaching, their planning and marketing and all of that stuff. And I'm sure that they help you create a vision. Why not for our marriages? Why not for those of us who might need some guidance on how to give our relationships attention, time, affection, appreciation? You know, a lot of people get into a relationship and they think that once they make the commitment, that's it. But the reality is, relationships grow because we grow as individuals. And if we don't allow our we or our relationships to grow, then we will leave it behind. And so 15 years later, 20 years later, we look at our partners and we think, who are you? Who have you become? We have grown apart, some people tell me. Others tell me that my friends, my office mates, my colleagues know me more than my spouse. So we don't want that. We want to be the most special to one another. Okay? So we want to create a relationship vision, and this is your homework. Okay? This is your homework. And a relationship vision is a very simple list or a very simple plan of statements that you can write up together, where that you will commit to doing for the future. right? So a relationship vision is a meaningful plan that you will both create together so that you can strengthen the bond between the two of you that offers a sense of purpose. This is one of the things that we also lost in the pandemic, our sense of purpose. Because the things that we used to do as a couple that brought us together, we're not able to do that right now. And hopefully we can do it soon, with the vaccines being developed. But, as the pandemic started, midway in the pandemic, when the pandemic started, I sent out this 30 home quarantine couple goals. It's coming from my last book of the same title, but at the same time there was so many things that um, we could be creative about so that we can enjoy the time together. So if you notice here on the first row, talking about the first time you met and that you were attracted to one another can bring about a lightness and a joyfulness, a laughter, uh, a carefree feeling of when you first met. No? The second one says, talk about what attracted you to one another. And every time I ask couples about this, they turn to each other with a smile, they're giggling. And on the Friday, in the next box there, I even noted, recall all the first activities that you did with one another, the first movie that you watched, the first mall that you went to, the first restaurant that you had a date, when you first said you loved each other. So we came up with all these different activities that couples could do every day and then put it on repeat, because we thought we were going to be in quarantine for 30 days, but we didn't realize it was going to be more than a year. So a relationship vision looks like this, but it is more than just having fun. It is the goals that you want to achieve as a couple. You will write each one in the present tense. We will appreciate each other every day. We will cook for one another every week and so on. So just to sort of like keep you connected. But I'd also like to share sort of like specific ingredients that you can actually use to liven up or fire up this relationship vision. And in my first book and also in my second book, I came up with what I call the 8 C's. Okay. It's the 8 C's to strengthen your relationship. It's the 8 C's, the ingredients to keep your marriage and your relationship loving and connected. And it is the 8 C's to affair proof your marriage. Okay. So all with the goal of sort of like keeping your relationship strong. And today I think that for 24/7 we're exposed to the news of cases rising, cases surging around the world, new variants emerging, and vaccines not being enough. So when Elaine and I were planning about this, I thought I would like to share these ingredients with you, um, in a light-hearted manner. And I know that during the pandemic, one of the things that really became the main activities in many households would be the K-drama, right? And K-pop music. And although I am not too familiar with all of them, um, I just wanted to understand what was the psychology behind the K dramas and K pop, right? And one of the things that we were using to sort of like help uh, individuals and couples going into a depression, having panic attacks, feeling lost and confused, burning out, one of the recommendations that we really gave during the lockdown is that they must find a way to stimulate their senses, okay? The sensorial experience, sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. And I realized that at least the few K dramas I watched or I saw, they had all these ways to stimulate all the five senses. And so yeah, this poster that I'm going to send, and my friend who made this for me, I appreciate her creativity. The eight C's, according to the K drama called Crash Landing on You. So you
Mhm.
can use the icon or the reaction in the Zoom chat box. Raise your hand if you've watched this K drama, right? I think there's a thumbs up or there's a clap. I mean, raise your hand or use your reaction. Put a heart in your box if you are one of those who have watched this K drama. So,
Maybe, sorry, can you click the play perhaps so we can maximize the screen? Yes. Thank you.
right. So, yeah. So the ingredients, the eight C's, the ingredients in a strong relationship. So it starts with the first C called curiosity, right? That we should always be interested and curious about our partners because we are dynamic people, we are changing, and so as dynamic people we always want to be curious about our partner because after many years baka hindi na natin sila kilala, right? And then the second C is to remind ourselves of our commitment, that to always have a vision of a lifelong perspective with our partners. The second one is calendar, to make time for one another. The fourth is to care, to regularly offer caring behavior to one another. The fifth is a word that I really love. It's an old fashioned word that is to cherish, because that means is that one, you, my partner, you are the most special to me, and I am responsible for you. We are responsible for each other. We cherish one another, that we intend and we commit to making our partners feel good and happy, and we're responsible for that, right? And then the sixth is communication, very important. And the seventh is to stay connected. And the eighth is to stay centered. And so today, in our remaining time together, I will talk about the four that I consider the most important, the most doable, so you can leave our webinar with some homework. The rest, I hope you could pick up a copy of my book and read about the rest of them. Yeah. So let's start with the first. So, I hope you will be inspired by the two characters of this K drama called Crash Landing on You. The man is Captain Ree, and the woman is, it's escaping me, but I think later on some of you can help share her name with me. Okay, so here we go. To stay connected, right? To stay emotionally close by regularly creating meaningful moments together. So, even Pope Francis talks about this connection and how essential it is to really keep this connection between couples, specifically mid-lifing couples, those who have been married 15 years and above. Even Pope Francis knows that they are the most vulnerable couples because romantic love has faded, and now we are back to, being comfortable and just sort of like a little bit disillusioned. Okay. So the connection will create a place where you both will be present to each other. And for those of you who are listening to us today as a couple, if your partner or spouse or girlfriend or boyfriend is next to you, I want you to try and really practice the gaze, right? Before K drama, we We were introducing the gaze to our clients, to our couple clients. And 30 seconds to 1 minute of soft eyes, and I understand that Captain Reed did this really well, um, you know, can really be so connecting. And without even words, couples are in tears, couples are smiling, couples are reaching out for a hug. And, it's just so binding. And so, after this webinar, try to gently, with soft eyes, don't stare, but offer your partner a gaze and with a message: I'm here, I'm present, I'm available for you. The second C is, okay, that's not working. There you go. The second C that I'd like to share with you today is care, okay? Daily acts of love and kindness. And I am going to borrow the 5 love languages to give you an idea how you can care for one another, right? You can show that you care through words, through gifts, through touch, through time, and through service. Okay. And again, I go back to quoting Pope Francis in his paper last year or 2 years ago, that was released by the Synod of Bishops. He talks about how caring behavior is one of the most basic tasks and commitments in a relationship, and that we must do it daily. And in fact, I recommend to the couples I work with very simple 5 1-minute moments for you to care with your partner upon waking up in the morning, before you part ways to work for the day, in the middle of the day, when you meet again at the end of the day, and before you go to bed. Offer a gesture of care. It could be a smile, it could be a hug, it could be a word, whatever works for you. And if you feel that care is not an area that you have developed so much, I hope that this could be one of your homeworks to be conscious and mindful and care for one another every day. Now, calendar is very challenging. Calendar is very controversial. I have many people telling me, we're too busy. We are too busy growing a business. We're too busy working, providing for our family. We're too busy with our duties and everything. But I can assure you, time can be created. You can make time if you want to. I see commitments to go to the gym. I see commitments to volunteer in communities, in charities, but we forget about our marriages. We forget about our relationships. We think that after marriage, it's okay. Marriage will just go along and it will just fall into place, but it doesn't. We need to be mindful and conscious so to make time for one another. Create time for each other is truly a necessity in nurturing the relationship. And I encourage you to have daily communication of about 20 minutes at a time, weekly dates that are gadget free, monthly moments that is of a prolonged period of time, doing something more significant, and hopefully a yearly weekend or a yearly holiday when things are better post-pandemic. And lastly, last of our 4 C's, is communication. I mentioned earlier that a lot of people have stopped talking because they are tired from the pandemic. We are all worn out. We have reached the maximum of our surge capacity. We are tired of talking, but really, we must try and continue to express thoughts and feelings openly and honestly. Sometimes we don't realize other people know more about us than our partners and our spouse. Listening beyond the words, listening is truly important. Communication is one of the most basic needs that we have. In fact, here it says, to live and relate to one another, we need to communicate. It is just truly innate in each and every one of us. Some more than others, like I guess people like me who consider themselves extrovert talks more. If you have a partner who's an introvert, then they talk less. But whatever it is, I think you will find that comfort zone where you can talk to one another. So please, I hope that you are going to engage with these 4 C's. Okay, connect, care, calendar, and communicate with one another towards a stronger relationship post pandemic. And I think right now we have a poll that we are going to do once more just to find out. So I want you to make a commitment to one another and to yourselves. Out of the 4 C's, choose one that you are going to start working on with your partner. Okay, I think our poll only has the 4. That's okay. Choose one of the 4: care, calendar, or communicate. Only choose one, so that it's not such a big goal and doable and something that you can commit to. Care, calendar, and communicate. What are you going to do starting tonight? What are you going to commit to be doing more? Care, calendar, or communicate more? For now, I'm just asking you to choose one so that you can stay committed and focus in growing just 1 C. But of course, after a month or so, move on to the next C and the next C. And my journal called Stay Connected can help you do that. It's a manual to do all of this, like a diary, a journal, so that you can stick to your homework, leave it next to your bed. If you're too busy, then at least you can write on it and share it with one another. It's very interesting. It has a he said, she said page. And, if you're too busy, then, write a note in the middle of the day. Each of you pick up the book and read a special message that you have left for one another. Okay, so we have our last minute, and soon we are going to move to our Q&A. So we have a good 15 minutes of listening and answering your questions. I would love to hear from you live, if that's allowed, for you to unmute yourselves. Even if we're virtual, I'd love to connect with you, with your videos turned on. If that is possible by our organizing host. If not, then I'm happy to sort of like read the questions. All right, wow. So you are committed to communicate more, 55%. So spend time talking about your deeper thoughts and feelings. One, your homework is you cannot talk about the pandemic. Second is you cannot talk about your children. And third, you cannot talk about work. So in the meantime, as we are allowing you to reconnect, talk about your dreams, your passions, your feelings, your thoughts, and, keep a balance of it being very positive rather than always problem solving and logistics and so on. Now, 41% of you commit to caring for one another. So please offer those gestures as we end this webinar tonight. If your partner, spouse, girlfriend, boyfriend is next to you, offer a hug, hold hands, and just start caring today. So yeah, I think we're going to end there. Oops, yeah, we're done with our poll. Okay, so we'll end there and open up for our question and answer portion.
Hi, Lizzie. Thank
Amy,
you.
I'll
Thank
turn
you.
it over to you. I'm sorry. I
Thank you. Thank
uh,
you so much for that very, very excellent, very, very meaningful presentation and sharing that you had, Lizzie. I had many takeaways myself. And so we'd like to open the floor. We have the last, 12 minutes or so. For questions that you may have, please type on the chat box, or as what Lizzie requested, you can unmute your audio and just state your question. Feel free to also unmute your video, your camera, I mean.
Elaine, we could maybe start it off. I know that you received some questions earlier that was sent in to your organizing committee.
We
So,
did.
you know, we could start off with one of those questions. And I hope that those of you who are with us, you know, Facebook Live or just here with us in the Zoom meet could just send us those questions.
We did, Lissy. In fact, I have many questions here, and we might not have all the time to cover them. One of the questions here for the parents like me in a work from home setup, how do you detach yourself from your family without making them feel so, especially if you need to spend the whole day in accomplishing your tasks at work?
Right. So that was really a common experience for many, for those of you who are working from home. And my answer to that question is to set boundaries, discuss boundaries, and make your boundaries clear. Now, if you have a very spacious home where your work from home space is a room, an enclosed room, you know, dress the part, say goodbye to the family, and tell the family I'm going to work, right? And so you want to sort of like set that limit and time frame. I'm going to be at work from 8 to 4. See what happened in the beginning, you know, because you were just home. Wow, children thought that mom and dad are home and I can engage with them the whole time. We can play, we can talk, we can do everything together. Even Yaya or helpers thought that they could ask us about the menu, the grocery shopping in the middle of the day because we were home. So set the boundary and put a sign in the door that you are at work. Now, if you are in a home that the space is quite limited, because this is the reality for many people as well, you may want to segregate this space, even if it's a small corner. And for some people, even if it's just a box where you put all your working materials in, if you are not prepared with a desk, the box, when it's open, that means you are working. When the box is closed, it means you're done working. So, you know, offer your children the knowledge or the information of your schedule. The reality is, because we were home, we could take more breaks. So teach your young children how to use the clock. Signal with them when signal to them when the boundaries are lifted and when the boundaries are set. Now, of course, in the beginning of the pandemic, early March 2020, we were just so excited to be together that boundaries were crossed, boundaries were pushed. But with a common goal as a family, I can assure you these boundaries will be respected because your goals as a family would be so important. Thank you
Thank
for that question, for whoever sent that in. Very relevant question.
Thank you, Lissy. Thank you. And I'll pick up one from the chat box. What if your partner has a very close-minded mentality and does not accept reasonings, and we end up arguing? In the end, we stop talking.
Yes. So, you know, as couples grow, they will discover that they are actually different, right? After romantic love has faded, you will realize that you are different, okay? And because of that, arguments and conflicts actually will arise. But at the moment that there's so much conflict, is also the moment growth can happen. So I suggest that when there's so much difference, disengage from fighting or arguing and simply ask your spouse this question: what do you need from me about this situation? Anong kailangan mo at anong kinakailangan ko? What do you need and what do I need? And both needs should actually be met. Now, if there is a reason why your needs have not been met, but only your partner's needs have been met, then that's a red flag in your marriage. And I hope that in writing the relationship vision that I shared with you earlier, right? You will make a list of things you want to achieve for the future of your relationship. We will be talking to each other nicely. We will be listening to each other. We will be accommodating each other's needs. I hope that can open your partner's mind that there are two worlds trying to coexist, and those worlds are different. And I hope that he can make space for yours. Now, highlight for you, make sure you're asking for your need. There are some partners there who don't know how to ask for their needs. Walang mind reading. Your partner cannot read your mind. So please express your needs clearly to one another.
Thank you. As I've heard, walang manghuhula. So,
Oh, that's so true.
one cannot
Yes,
guess, right,
mind
what's in the
reading.
mind. All right. There's one here that I'd like to also read. Even if couples slash families have that commitment to keep together, what are some ways that we can eliminate or lessen the negativity or outside noise as a result of being on lockdown or facing uncertainty? So this one I think refers to the external noises around
You
them,
mean,
outside
do
noise.
you mean like the news? Do you
Perhaps.
mean news?
Yeah. It doesn't say, but it says negativities or outside noises, quote unquote, as a result of being on lockdown or facing the uncertainties.
Right. Okay. I'm going to assume that that person is referring to 24/7 exposure to the news, because that is what we were receiving during the initial stages of the lockdown. So, unplug, okay? Unplug from the news, tune off, tune out, um, make space for positivity, for emptying your mind of all these negativities, and really protect yourself from the negativity. You can't control the outside world. You can't control sort of like what's out there, but you can control what you choose to expose yourself to. So, if it's from the outside world, social media can be quite invasive. So please just be mindful of that. Set time to meditate, devotional moments, read inspirational thoughts, and have fun, play board games, talk about memories that will really keep you hopeful for the future.
Thank you, Lissy. I love the four C's. Actually, we can do many things within those, right? The
Right.
communication, the care, the
Yeah.
connect, the gaze that you mentioned. I love that. And the five love languages. Thank you so much. As a last one question from the one that I will read, and I'm just waiting as well from those who are in the chat, who have access to the chat, if they have any one last question before we close. As a manager, how can we determine how much allowance to give an employee for their mental health when we are also thinking of our productivity as a business? Do you have any comments about that, Lissy?
Yeah, yeah. So actually, one of the webinars, so I have to tell you that this topic that we presented today was really one of the top topics that were requested during the lockdown. Okay, but alongside this was really for companies and organizations in terms of how to support their teams, how to keep a resilient group or company going. And this was maybe a concern, right? Because we all have different levels of psychological and mental well being. And managers and HR supervisors maybe are not trained to assess the mental well being of their staff. What are they going to do if they feel that a staff member needs more mental health days, is depressed, is ghosting them, is not present during team meetings? is not meeting deadlines, where, well, then those are all red flags, right? So my answer to that question is, you have to take each of your team members as an individual. It's not one size fits all. And you have to be confident that you know each one and their level of commitment to the company, to your team, to your goals, and so on. And you want to be mindful that if the symptoms of anxiety or depression or burnout is sort of like being magnified or escalated, reach out to that staff member, try to understand where they're at, offer some of these information for mental health wellness, and hopefully they can avoid burnout, reduce fatigue, flourish instead of fight, flight, or freeze, flourish into the post pandemic, as I hope we all will. So, my answer there is get to know your staff, find out where they're at in terms of their mental health well being, come together as a resilient team, and tweak those goals to make it more realistic post pandemic.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lisi, and for taking that question. And there's so many other questions actually and comments that came out, and many as well are thanking you for this very rich and insightful talk that you just had here in the chat. I could read some and hopefully could read some as well. They're thanking you. And here in the questions and comments that they submitted as they registered. I will forward them to you, Lizzie, and hopefully you can see them and still comment on them even through email later on. And so at this point, we are about to close. I'd like to just show once more the book that Lisi also showed earlier, the three books. Trina, yeah, if you can just do you want to still talk about this, Lisi? You talked about them earlier. Is there any other that you'd like to add as well?
No, I just want to encourage them that if you were interested in our topics today, please grab a copy. They are available in the Philippines. They were launched in Manila or wherever you are in the world. I'm on Instagram under Stay Connected Lissy Puno and Affairs Don't Just Happen Lissy Puno. I'm also on Facebook under Affairs Don't Just Happen and Lissy Puno Counseling Psychologist. I welcome comments and questions you send my way. But in the meantime, I encourage all of you listening tonight to stay connected. A strong and healthy relationship is an option for everyone forever. So thank you, Power in You, and all the best to your organization. For all of you who organized this for tonight, Elaine and Trina, thank you so much for having me. And please stay well and safe, everyone.
Thank you. On behalf of Team Power in You, Lissy, would like to thank you for a very rich, insightful, meaningful talk, especially during this time that we're facing, the pandemic for some countries still, like the Philippines, still facing, and also, of course, the rest of the world. And we really appreciate the time and all the inputs that you have shared, Lissy. And we'd also like to make a couple more announcements. For next month's webinar, you can see here on June 2nd, Making Lifestyle Changes with Health and Wellness Coaching by Miss Ia Sikat. You will find more information about this in our website. And of course, to all of you who have attended tonight, we will also share more information about this. Trina, if you can just move on to the next one. So, if your business is losing or facing financial and operational challenges, we do offer services as well that can help your business. This is on redesigning and rebuilding your organization's blueprint to success. Again, you can get in touch with Team Powering You and through our website, www.poweringyou.com.ph. And the last one will be really on helping us improve the webinar. If you can just take 10 seconds to answer this two-question poll. And Trina, if you can just post the same link on the chat box. Otherwise, you could take a picture or scan of this QR code, and it will lead you to just two questions that you can easily answer in 10 seconds. So the link is also sent to the chat box by Trina, who is our technical producer and is under the name Power in You Philippines. And so we'd like to, and by the way, we take your inputs seriously, you know. So thank you so much for those who give suggestions and comments to us. And so I hope that you have found this hour and about 5 minutes of webinar helpful, in as much as for me as well. I really enjoyed this time with Lissy, learning, listening to her, and learning as much from all her sharing. So very, very rich. This recording will be sent to you as well through email by Trina, and also you can find them later on in our YouTube channel. So, with this, I'd like to say thank you to everyone. I'd like to again thank Miss Lissy Puno. And thank you so much, Lissy. Excellent, excellent webinar. And to all of you have been very, very much present listening to Lissy and engaging us through your questions and comments. Thank you very much for joining us. And we hope to see you again in our next month's and future webinars. So thank you very much. This is Elaine Cercado on behalf of Power in You. Have a good night, and bye to all for now.